All right, show you the modification. You have to, install your light. And so there are two modifications you should really do if you have this light, which is the correct light. The other one is kind of more angular at the top. First off, make sure you're mounting it right. These lights should be down so it lights up your license plate. Secondly, you need 2 washers on this. And if you look without washers, and they didn't include washers for me, the way the angle of this bracket is when you tighten it, the housing of the light will be pushing against the metal, which could cause it to fatigue and crack. So you need some washers there to space it a little. And then I put washers on the backside, and I changed these nuts to nylocks, they're called. So they have that nylon little piece there that makes it so they can walk and not go loose on you, which would be bad. All right, so you guys can watch the TST video on how to take off the rear fender. But for this mount, mine either is bent wrong or I don't know. I don't like it. It rubs right here, and you can kind of see a little spot. And I don't want it to rub there because it'll eventually damage the plastic, right? So I'm gonna add some washers here, maybe on all 4 to space it down, like all of it down, or maybe just 2 up at the top here, this side, which will pitch it a little bit more away from this. So something you might want to consider if yours is touching right here. All right, so I just did 2 washers on the side, this side, on these top ones. On the back side there, which angled the plate, so now I have a decent gap there. So hopefully that won't, I don't think it's gonna bounce really and rub that. I'm leaving this on as protection. Again, make sure this is mounted with the lights down. This is our license plate bracket. So now we just need to kind of swap over all of our original light signals and everything onto this unit. And also we will want to cut, and hopefully you have a little bit of skills in electrical splicing and stuff, but this is our OE brake light, and these are the turn signals, these little tiny ones. Now the turn signals, they're just gonna wire straight up. But this guy, we're gonna have to splice wires for these connectors. They didn't give us a proper connector. And that's not too hard to do, so I'm gonna handle it. And I'm gonna reuse the stock plug. I'm just gonna cut it off of here. I'm gonna cut it deeper, and then I'll be able to use this watertight connector and really seal up my splices and soldering. All right, so on this, we need to separate the 2 carcasses that are kind of squishing together to protect the wiring and everything. So you see you've got 2 screws here, 2 here, 3 here, sorry, camera angle, 2 there, 3 here, and 2 back here, and that should let us separate the carcass. I'll show you that. All right, now that we got all our screws out, we're not gonna wanna forget about these guys here. There's 2 little plastic guys here, and all you do with these are super simple. I'm just using the key. Push in on that little pin. Oh, they're usually very simple, there we go. Push on that little pin, and then you should be able to just pull out this guy from the bottom side with your fingernail. It just comes right out. Don't break them. You might be able to reuse them in the future. 1 on each side. Okay, now with all those screws out and the 2 pins, there's 2 little tabs right here that you need to just push out like that. And then 1 on each side, sorry, 1 on each side. And then you should just pretty much lift out the carcass, and you'll see you're still connected by some wires right there. And those are to your reverse light. Sorry, your license plate light. So I'm gonna have to feed that wire through so I don't damage it, right? So I'm gonna grab that here and just pull it through because it's kind of inside of something here. See how it's trapped by the tail lights? So you'll have to feed this through, just pull it on through. All right, so once we're separated, there are some more connectors here. And what we're gonna wanna disconnect is this white little guy right here. Why are we disconnecting that? Well, that is to our license plate light right there, and we can't get these 2 apart nicely without that disconnected. So squeeze this one, pop it out, and then you should be able to fully separate the carcasses. All right, so now we've got, I separated this one. This is just our cable that we're probably gonna use to splice some wires. And luckily that's just a replaceable part. I don't know if they were thinking about us modders or what, but we could easily just replace this. This is clearly just a part number likely right there. So this is replaceable, so don't worry about splicing it. You can always get a new one. Okay, so we've got all these wires, and these two long boys are to our blinkers, and we're wanting to graft those onto here. So what we need to do is loosen this guy, which is likely a 10 millimeter like a lot of the rest has been on this bike. Unscrew those, pop out these guys, and then you're gonna push them into here and tighten them up just like this is. All right, so our first problem we're running into, so after I pulled that out, it appears that this is a solid metal piece to really nicely hold it in place, but it doesn't slide into place. It's a little machined too tightly, and maybe that's because they painted over, but I don't think so. I think it just is a little too small, so we kind of need to bore that hole out or file it a little bit to make sure this slides in. But this is what it would look like. I think it looks great. Personally, this is the safest thing. This is why I don't like the TST, is this is a lot of visibility, especially when your blinker and lights are lighting up, while the TST shares lights in just this tiny little frame. I have not only just as much brake light, but extra huge area for blinkers. So I'm not a huge fan of the integrated TST for that reason. It's not the safest thing, and we already don't get seen on the street. So hence why I'm doing this. So I just took a 1/2 inch drill bit and just drilled it right out. And I will show you guys how dang close that is. It has to be so close to perfect. And it barely took any material out. It really didn't take much at all. Try and do this one-handed. There you go. And if you look, it just has a little bit of wiggle. But once we bolt this on, really it has like no wiggle, right? That big part won't have any wiggle forward, backward, or anything. I know it looked like there is, but this bolt isn't tight. So the front hole is actually a little too big. If you look, it's not really gonna hold it exactly in place. So we're kind of gonna wanna match up on each side and then tighten down our nut. I would recommend a washer on the inside there. So we'll put a washer on the inside and then put our OEM nut back on. All right, so I wanted to make sure I caught this. I installed this one so you guys could kind of see what it looks like, but I haven't installed the other side yet. So our other side, we've already got, I drilled this out to 1/2 inch, right? This back one and forward one, I should say. That's a little weird, but and then fed my wire through, pushed it in, and then on this side, these were on the OE Fender, and I didn't quite mention it, but they should be right there in that hole. And what you need to do is you need to take this way and slide it on to your bolt and feed it through, and then tighten your nut on there, and it should go inside of the blinker. So I'll try to feed this on so you guys can kind of see. It should be totally all this should get flush. If it's not flush, then something didn't feed together properly. Let's see how that piece, the male end, sticked into our blinker, and then we can tighten up this nut. And furthermore, there's a little bit of wiggle here. You'll see the angle of this, just a little bit of up or down can be done. So I would recommend all the way down, just because of the way it's going to project to rearward drivers. Too far up, and obviously maybe they, I don't know, like we want the best visibility. So I feel like it would be best down, but personal preference. It also kind of seems if you're all the way down, it lines up nicest with the plane of the taillight. So there we go. And then we'll put our plate here, and our lights will light it up, and I still got to do the wiring. All right, now this, I knew this mod was coming, okay? It's pretty much the first mod people do on like every bike. So these are what they gave me from the dealership because I had temp tags and they didn't want to give me hardware, I guess. And boo on Suzuki, but they don't drill the holes even for you on the license plate bracket. So my dealer had to drill those in the stock housing. Anyways, okay, so you're gonna want some hardware. It's not provided, at least in my kit, to mount the plate and then center your plate up and obviously tighten things up. Now keep in mind, if you're ever washing your bike, it is not supported on the bottom quarter or so. So if you have a good field day with a pressure washer, you might bend your bottom of your plate. Kind of a bummer they didn't include just a little extra or something to just give a little bit of bracing, even if it was just the outer rim, a little cut piece. That would have been nice, but just be careful of that. Tighten your plate on and we will get all this wired up. So we're gonna pass our wires, zoom out here. We're gonna pass our wires up through the hole. They did include this grommet for me, and no, it's not gonna seal perfectly. You could always go with a different grommet. Very easily to source these things out, honestly. Pass those up and through, and then we're gonna wanna hide them under around here most likely. We're not gonna wanna pinch them underneath this, so pass them along the front right side here where this hole is, and then we'll kind of tuck them here and all this, because really you don't use this for anything. This I had to disconnect just so I could get this to wiggle, and you'll see in the TST video there's a clip here, and a clip here of these guys pretty much, and there's one silver screw right here that you need to take out, and that gives you all this play in this thing so you can mess with it. Figure now would be a good time to show you guys that they did include some hardware, but this is pretty lacking and there were no instructions. So yeah, this video might be helpful for some people. The hardware they included, I believe these four, I'm guessing, they were supposed to be the four I use here. But honestly, these are silver and these are black. The OEMs are black, and we know these are OEM for the stock Fender, so why wouldn't we just reuse them? I don't know why you wouldn't reuse them. I'm staring at things, and if I look here, they're not protruding very far through the frame. I would just reuse the OEs. I guess you could get some black one of these if you prefer that smooth top. Go ahead, but I would just reuse the OEM. What they did include were some, they included heat shrink and some zip ties. Now the zip tie, I would recommend use a zip tie. Once we've pulled all of our wires up right here and we've tucked them real nice so from the back no one can see them at all, I would recommend you zip tie them to probably this wire right here, or maybe around this frame tube or somewhere here, just so that they don't start to droop ever and fall through the hole and then, you know, look ugly and maybe rub on your tire, which I doubt, but that's what I would just recommend, just so they're kind of held up somewhere. So now we can reconnect up. Our blinkers actually just go right into their old connectors, which are color coded. So this is the black one, and there's a red one that's hiding from us down there. You guys can barely see it down there, that one. Plug those in, and then we need to do our splicing for our brake light. So if you recall, we need this male side. This is called the male side, and this side would be the female side. So we need this male side. If you look at the other side of the cord, it is a female, and it's the one for the weathering outside the box here, we'll say, the rear fender. So there's something you want to consider, and it's not really consider, but we're gonna peel off this electrical tape on this and this, and we want to see where this splice is, and we probably do not want to include this connector. We just want some extra wire loom to do our soldering and stuff, and hopefully there's enough here. It's not a big deal if we have to keep this connector, because maybe it doesn't give us enough wiring, and then we can just cut it further down here. And then all I did was zip tied these wires up, like I said, so they're just held so they don't start drooping, and then I just looped these guys around and they'll get plugged in right there. There's plenty of space here. You shouldn't really, I mean, all I do is I keep my plate stuff info in there. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys where I decided to splice. So I did undo the electrical tape around this guy, and I'll have to redo it. But the splice happens really early on, actually. So it's really not gonna give us enough wire reasonably to work with it. You could go for it, it's up to you. Personal choice, I'm choosing not to, so it happens like right where my thumb is. So I'm just gonna pick a spot further back. So further back, I would say about, 3 inches back from where the end of this was, I just created a cut. I pulled the 3 wires out from there, and our 3 wires are what are gonna give us our signals here. So one's ground, and one's like high light, and one's the low light. So we need to figure out which wires those are from the factory plug. And all I'm gonna do is plug in our OEM harness, and then I'm going to probe these wires with a voltmeter, and I'll be able to tell you guys which ones they are. All right, so here I am testing out which of the wires with a voltmeter is my brake, my ground, and my high light. So something you might want to check would be the blinkers. I know that they're color coded here, but that doesn't mean you didn't mix them up here. I did somehow, must have been while recording and everything with you guys. So the colors got flipped, right? But that's an easy fix. You don't actually have to flip the blinker unless you want to. The actual light, you could just flip the wires. Either your black will go into the red, your red will go into the black. Doesn't make a difference. Bike's not going to throw any codes. It doesn't know that there's a left or a right blinker. It just knows wires. So I'm going to test the wires. I can't hold the camera and show you guys that, but I will tell you which of these wires are which. Okay, so before I forget, the black is our ground, the black and white. Thick black, mainly black, little white stripe. That's our ground. Always no volts, straight to ground. Our gray would be our 12 constant hot, and our black is, our white with our black stripe is our signal 12 volts. So this one always says 12 volts. This one only gets 12 volts when you hit the brake switch. So we need to wire up for that, of which, again, they didn't give us instructions, so we don't know which of these wires matter. So I'm guessing black is going to be ground, guessing red is going to be our constant 12, and green would be our signal 12. But I'll have to test. All right, so I am testing this in the most sketchiest way possible. Do not do this. I have open leads, and if they were to touch, I could short a fuse or melt a wire. We don't know if they jump to ground. Don't do it. So what I'm gonna try to do here is prop you guys up, and I'll have to watch this video back probably myself. I'm gonna turn the bike on. I believe everything's in the correct spot, but again, it's just a concept right now. So that actually looks super bright. So I might have two wires flipped. So brake. Yeah, so two of our wires are flipped, and that's because I don't know what this thing's wired to. So I'm gonna turn it off. So I'm gonna tell you guys right now, here's what it is. Black to the black solid with white stripe, and white wire with the black stripe is gonna go to our red. White wire, black stripe to our red. And then our gray wire is gonna go to the green, actually. Thanks, neighbor. We all live here. Even when I start my bikes, I'm not a complete tool. Around the neighborhood. Or other people's neighborhoods. Okay, so I'm gonna hold these in place because the wires aren't super happy, if I'm honest with you guys, about this predicament. So we're gonna go power on. That looks a lot dimmer, and now when I hit my brake, see, we go bright. Okay, so once again, black to the black stripe of the bike, so black wire with a white stripe goes to the solid black. The gray wire with the, I think it has a stripe as well, but gray wire goes to the green, and our white stripe with the, or our white wire with the little black stripe goes to the red wire. That is the way we want this. Okay, so now I've soldered my connections here and heat shrinked them, as you can see. I will do some further electrical wrapping and tape and tuck and stuff like that, but I'm just gonna show you guys the light now. So switch it on. We've got our low light. That is our low light. Our highlight when we grab the brake. So there you go. That's everything to it. We're just going to tuck all of our wires. We can leave this guy undone. We should wrap it just so it's protected from the elements. Tuck all of our wires down in here, and we're done. That's it. Everything's mounted up solid. Just remove our plastic now that we're done installing. Remove this little plastic covering. I would leave it on until you're totally done in case you need to remove it for something. That way your lens doesn't get scratched. So, hey guys, hope the video helped you out. Please comment, like, subscribe. Your guys' support means the world to me,
and we'll see you in the next video.